Is Serena Williams a bit of a narcissist like Meghan Markle? Hello everyone, welcome to Real News Network. My name is Brittany, and today I'm going to be reviewing the first episode of Archetypes. I used to call it Archetypes, because actually I think that would have been better because, it kind of ties into the Archwell. But no, Archetypes. And Meghan's, first kind of podcast episode, and just looking at it, and I just started to wonder, how close are Serena and Meghan? And then I also kind of realized, I kind of see now why you guys are friends, because you kind of have similar tendencies, I think. And so I'm just going to be reviewing the episode, letting you guys know a bit of what I thought about it, and feel free to let me know your comments below. I would love to hear about it. Did you watch it and what did you think? But if you guys haven't been here to Royal News Network before, like I said, my name is Brittany, and on this channel we talk about everything related to royals. So that's news, gossip, fashion, jewelry, television shows, movies, and history. We will do it all right here. So if you want to subscribe, that would be fantastic. And like I said, the debut episode of Archetypes, which dropped from the sky when I was in Poland without internet really. There was one spot in the place I was staying at in the lobby where you could have a bit of Wi-Fi. One spot. And I was kind of at a conference, so I was busy all day, and I was sharing a room with someone. So my ability to review audio about it was minimal, and honestly I kind of held off listening to it. I probably could have done something like I did, kind of reviewing the episode a bit in, I can't even remember what I was talking about because, traveling, it's all a blur. And I had done a bit of a review about it, but without listening to it. And I was at Warwick Castle, actually, where I did it. But after listening to it, I did that at the end of my 8-hour flight from Amsterdam to the States. I was mixed feelings about it. Because at first I was kind of like, well, you know what? This is the biggest surprise, guys. Meghan Markle's voice didn't bother me that much. I know so many of you talked about how it was sultry, and I mean it totally was. 100% she had the sultry thing she was trying to do. But honestly, it actually didn't bother me that much. And again, that really, really surprised me, because part of the reason I held off listening to it is because I hate listening to her voice. And so I was like, okay, I'll just take a step back. I won't listen, because, I kind of wanted to enjoy my vacation without interrupting it. It wasn't really a vacation, I should say, because it was a conference. I was busy all day, but I was kind of enjoyed it without having to listen to Meghan, especially because my last day I wanted to head around town and stuff, and I had things to do. I actually went out to Auschwitz because you can do day tours, and so that was really powerful. So I had done those things, and so I was like, okay, on the plane I started watching movies, and then at the last bit I was like, okay, I'll finally sit down and listen to it. And honestly, her voice didn't bother me that much. That was the thing I was most worried about, and that I was kind of eh. But I will say how the structure, but just to say something nice. Just wanted to say something nice. Other than that, I thought it was kind of terrible. Just from even a structural and interview standpoint, it was pretty bad. I just didn't like how Meghan set it up, how they did the story structure. I didn't really like any of that at all. Not to mention the fact that the interview, it was weird because it was too personal and obviously, and also kind of vague. So they would say, talk about something. Let me find you a specific example here.
And I know I've experienced that in tennis for sure when, I've had a lot of bad experiences in New York, in particular New York, in other places as well. But just at the Open, it's been, it's been hard. And I know a lot of people have seen it, and it's just, what is it?
But
bad
hold
luck?
on a second.
I don't know.
Unless you want, can I jump in there? Because there are certain things that I know you won't want to say about your experience, but I lived through a lot of that with you.
Yeah, but there's some experience I didn't deserve at all.
Oh my gosh, of course. You were treated completely unfairly.
So they're talking about this particular situation where they claim that Serena was treated poorly, but they don't tell us when. They don't really tell us where. They don't really tell us why. They don't really tell us what. Just, you were treated badly, and I was there for you. And in an interview, people can be kind of vague, but if you're interviewing somebody, it's your job to kind of push them. Go, can you please tell me more about X? Because again, you want to try to get their story. You want to try to get them talking. And this kind of vagueness, I don't think helps any, because what do people do? Well, you Google it. And you know what it reminded me of? And I was like, oh yeah, I remember there was this one game, Serena got thrown out. It was kind of bad. And so I looked it up. And basically everything I could find about it talked about Serena's extremely poor behavior on the court. And again, I'm not sure if that's the particular situation they're referring to. It was at the US Open, but she just basically chewed out a line person for what she thought was making the wrong call. And perhaps this woman was, but like Serena started chewing her out, and then she went over to, kind of the judge and started, chewing him out. I was like, the woman said, the line person said, well, Serena, threatened to shove a ball down my throat. And Serena's talking to the officials going, well, I didn't threaten to kill her. It's like, well, if you're shoving a ball down her throat, that is kind of a threatening to kill her. Yes, maybe you didn't say those exact words, but, it was a pretty severe threat. And, Serena is a very athletic woman, and, this woman was kind of tiny. So I could see, maybe where she felt rather threatened, and she got thrown out of that game and was very pouty about it. And then in 2018 was the most recent example, and it wasn't, she had been losing to Naomi Osaka, and this was like the final. So she had been losing. And so she started throwing a tantrum about it. And she, she was claiming that, the wrong call was being made. She called this is how it started. Sorry, I was getting to how it started. So the referee, the net, and the referee saw it and called it out. And, Serena goes over and starts chewing him out about it, calling him sexist, racist, that, I'm a mother. I would never cheat. I was like, well, I just read a story recently about a mother who used her children to help her steal a necklace from an 84-year-old things. So it was just an exceptionally poor behavior on display from Serena in that game. And she ended up basically, I think, being forced to forfeit, and Naomi Osaka won. And while Serena told the crowd, and when you think about it now, what does Naomi do as a tennis player? She plays the victim. So she learned from the best. Play the victim when you're losing, and then people will flock to you. Because what Naomi did later is that she pulled out an event, which was a clay court, which apparently she doesn't play well on. So this was the French Open. The French Open is played over a clay court. She pulled out, citing mental health difficulties. And people called her out going, well, no, and that she didn't want to be forced to have a press conference, about her loss if she lost, because she anticipated it. And people called her out and go, no, you just don't want to lose and be forced to talk about it. Just own it, because she cited mental health issues. And I'm like, no, you just don't want to talk about it, because anyways. So I just those kind of things, I felt those throughout the interview, and I just didn't think that served Serena or Meghan well, because then people like me who are curious are going to Google, and they're going to find worse things than what you said. Because maybe if you had explained it a bit, then maybe people wouldn't Google, but you were just kind of vague about it. And I don't think that really did you any favors. The biggest thing as well is that Meghan talked a lot. She talked a lot, and she asked really long questions and really bad questions. I remember her first question was pretty bad, so listen to this.
I was thinking about, even when I text you, I remember, this is what I want to do. Here's the concept. Here's the idea. And just this thought of like these archetypes, but it's the kind of stuff you and I talk about so much, of these boxes and labels and, the things that we both have been called and witnessed each other being called. So I guess part of it, just to set the table, is what made you want to do this with me? Besides the fact that you're my girl.
I've interviewed people before. I've done it quite a few times. There is an art to it. There is a process to it, learning it. It's not easy sometimes. I learned it on the fly. And so this kind of, like this meandering question she gives her, was just really bad, I thought. And it just, again, just one of those things where it's like, well, if you had taken some time, maybe you could have kind of learned the art of interviewing before you set out on this endeavor. But, hey. And if you look at it well as you listen to it, she says, what did you make you want to talk to me about this? And it was just one of those things where it's like, as so many people have mentioned, everything turned back to Meghan throughout the whole podcast. Everything turned back to Meghan. I mean, she even started with that ridiculous P&G story, which I want to do a whole video about that story, because again, every time she says that, and that she believes her sole letter and her sole appearance at Nick at Night News, or Nickelodeon News Channel or whatever, as a child, changed a multi-million-dollar ad campaign, just makes me think she believes in Santa Claus, because that's just not how the world works. That's not how the world works. Yes, her part could have been part of an avalanche, but she never mentions the avalanche. She only mentions herself. That she was the one who changed everything. I was like, honey, no. That's not how the real world works. And that she continues to believe that really makes me question her sanity, because it's just logic that would tell you that that's just absolutely not the case. The next thing I kind of wanted to talk about was her whole section on the nuns. So actually, ironically, when I was at my event in Poland, I spent a lot of time around nuns. They were on a retreat and we were in the same location. And so I saw all the nuns in their habits, and it was fun. And they were very sweet. They all spoke Polish, except for one apparently did speak English, but I didn't run into her. Somebody else from my group did. And so just, thinking of them, they go into the church that was close there, daily, and they would go at certain times, and they would bring their Bibles, and they would pull their Bibles out, and their Bibles have notes in them, and they're worshiping in the sermon. And so Meghan's claim that these nuns at Sacred Heart, that they wanted to remove the oppression of the patriarchy. I'm like, honey, that's the whole point of the Christian faith, that it is to a certain extent patriarchal. God is, God is God, but he has masculine characteristics as far as we can tell. Jesus was a man. And so you just have this whole thing where it is kind of a patriarchal system for you to just go, well, they wanted to shed that. And, I was like, well, then they're not really Catholic anymore if they do that. And that's not bad. It's like the true meaning of the patriarchy is not, obviously everybody's down with the patriarchy. But, the world was created, if you believe as a Christian, by God, is that the world is created to function in a particular way. And that is the way God intended it to run. And men are head of the household, and women, do kind of child rearing and nurturing and those sorts of things. And that marriage together is what God intended. And it is meant in his eyes to be something that is good. So we have twisted that in our culture, of course we have, but it's also become something where it's like being a man is negative. And you feel that a lot throughout Meghan's podcast, is that being a man is negative. It's not a good thing. She has this whole she has this whole clip talking about, well, the men tennis players behave badly and nobody criticizes them for it. And I was like, no, that's not true. They get penalty points too and everything. It just depends on the situation. And, Serena, in some of her pictures, she's going like this. And, when you're pointing at somebody, it kind of comes across as rather aggressive. So maybe they dealt with it differently. But again, it was like one of those things where Meghan just wanted to put all the blame on the men and never really explain anything. But this nun thing with the Sacred Heart, again, it shows me that despite her supposedly converting to the Church of England, she really doesn't understand Christianity at all. And the nuns, apparently, I didn't actually do my due diligence. I do apologize. I didn't look at Sacred Heart and see if that's still the case for them. But if they're not wearing habits and they claim to be nuns, that's misleading. Most nuns who are very devout wear habits. That is the whole point. So again, what she's saying just doesn't make a ton of sense. Obviously, you do have the South Africa fire as well. That has been, there's a debate on that. Some random guy in South Africa said, no, there was a fire. I saw the heater and it was melted. Didn't see the fire, but saw the melted heater. And everybody else was like, well, it smoked a bit. And, who knows? It's so hard to tell. That's the problem with Meghan. I did the video I filmed before this kind of goes over this, and I think I'll release them in a particular order. But you can't count on her to tell the truth. And that's a problem. That's a problem when you want people to care about you, is that, you need to tell the truth. And that nobody can count on her narrative anymore is kind of deeply problematic for her. But looking at the overall structure of the podcast, I didn't like it. And honestly, again, I liked kind of some of her, her voice didn't grate on me as much as I thought it would. But I just thought it was weird that she would do these super long introductions, and then she would talk briefly to the person, then do a super long, introduce them, when she could have asked Serena, hey, just tell me some of your accomplishments. Or she could have done it in the interview. Serena has done this and that. And I'm like, don't worry, honey, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but you are incredible. I mean, that's what she could have done. It could have been so easy. But her kind of interrupting, and again, it was this super narrative focus. She focused a lot, you could tell, on the narrative of it. And so they even broke it up so they could have some expert talk on things. Again, didn't do much for me. And they came back, and one of the interesting things I thought about it as I listened to it, and I'll kind of end on this note a bit. I came to the end of this not really feeling like I learned anything about Serena Williams, except for things that are not necessarily super flattering. One of the things I kind of questioned is how really good friends are they? Because the picture Serena released around the time of this interview was from when Meghan went to the Open in 2019, the US Open. So is that the last picture they have together? I thought it was interesting too because Serena talked about releasing, the story that she was retiring, and apparently she had talked to Meghan about it briefly, but she actually had an hour-long conversation apparently with Harry. So, and Serena has mentioned before that she kind of leans on Harry a bit as a coach. So who is she really close to? Is it Meghan or is it Harry? Because I feel like she kind of leans on Harry because Meghan even mentioned, oh, I'm so glad you sent it to me. I wasn't sure if you would. It's like, if you were good friends, wouldn't you let somebody know that you were, quitting your sport that you had done forever? I thought you were close. You sat with the family. And, also we had the US Open this week. Serena's doing her swan song, and is Meghan in there? No. Will she show up? Maybe. But I get it that she is traveling next week. But, again, Meghan has somebody to do all the small things for her. So her and Harry could have actually done kind of a two-fur trip. They could have gone and watched the last of the US Open and then hopped the pond to the UK. And they still may do that. I don't know. But again, it made me question, well, how good of friends are you? But here's the thing. At the end of the day, as I was listening to it, what kind of became apparent to me is that Serena kind of has the same problem Meghan does. And that they're both narcissists, I think. And they're both victims. And they both believe in a victim narrative. Because I felt that a lot. Serena complaining about various things. It's like, well, honey, you're one of the most successful tennis players in the whole world. Like, do you really have that much to complain about? Sure, things were hard, but you proved everybody wrong. Relish that. I'll get to Mariah Carey because I actually really enjoyed her half of the interview with Meghan. She owned Meghan in that interview. Meghan just kind of came out looking rather pathetic in that, and Mariah was just, I'm not a big Mariah fan, but I just thought she was awesome. Serena, I just didn't get much of a feel for her. And again, what I did, I just didn't really care for. And I felt like she's just like Meghan. They buy into the victim narrative. That's their kind of bread and butter. They want that victim narrative. And I just don't think it works particularly well. And I don't think it's particularly flattering to Serena that she is friends with Meghan. But again, I just question how close they are because they even mentioned as well, I haven't seen you in a while. It's like, well, how long has a while been? So it was just kind of interesting that there was just this awkward tension almost as if the two women, although they are friends, they're not really friends. Serena wouldn't go out of her way to talk to Meghan. She does go out of her way to talk to Harry, but not to Meghan. And I think I could see why if Serena was debating quitting tennis, because obviously Harry quit the royal family and that was pretty huge. But those are also very different things. And I will end on this. What bothered me about Serena Williams' retirement is that she was basically complaining that because women are biologically designed to carry children, that's an inconvenience and for her as a competitor, and men have the advantage, ergo she's mad about that. Yeah. Again, our society has gone crazy with some of these things, and if you believe in all that transgender stuff, that's fine, but there is kind of something called a biological reality. And at some point, women, we just can't compete at the level men can when we're older. I just don't think we can. We just don't have the stamina because it's not what we were designed for. And what's actually interesting to me is I read this piece and I'm so mad at myself that I forgot, didn't save it, because I usually try to save things that kind of spark my interest and spark my oh, okay, I understand this. Is that it was a piece about when there were a lot of people from the Middle East crossing into Europe and they were trying to go on boats to get to Greece and everything, is that women and children are unable to survive in the water as long as the men can. And so if a woman and child gets in the water, that's much more dangerous for them than if a man does. So I just thought that was super interesting to me. And it's just, there's just biological differences. That can't be helped. It can't help that, at some point you're going to be beaten. Because I got the sense from Serena that her real issue is that she's just not going to be number one anymore. And you know what? As an athlete, just the burden you bear. Somebody's always going to be better than you at some point. That's just life. You know, the better you accept it, I think the better you'll be. But I think from what I've seen of those couple of instances where Serena's really blown up on the court is that she's a rather sore loser, I would say. So anyways, guys, I feel like this meandered a bit more than I meant it to, but let me know what you think. Did you watch or listen to the podcast? Again, it was fine, but like the construction of it was really poor. And again, you see this perspective of Meghan that she has to be super controlling about the narrative because she narrates so much of it that I don't think really needs to be there. But my next one is going to be obviously Mariah. And I just loved it. Mariah totally owned Meghan in that interview. It was awesome. It really was. So guys, let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.